Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nation on Fire. Nation on Fire is a compilation or combining two shows that we were doing on Blog Talk Radio, Patriot Coalition Live on the 25th and America's 11th Hour on the 11th. My name is Jeff Lewis. I'm the co-founder and national director of Patriot Coalition and will be one of your hosts. Our Director of Operations, Ms. D. Sadler, who's in the chat room as KS Patriot, who's going to be monitoring the chat. So if you've got questions in the process of the things that we're going to show you tonight and ongoing, you can get her attention in the chat window by typing in all caps question. And eventually we'll get to the question and answer portion of the show, where we're going to unmute the participant microphones. And when we get to that part of the show, to keep it fair, if you'll also, in the chat window, put your first name, whether, like right now, some people are in there as viewer number 3, 4, 5. They haven't changed their name. D is actually putting the process to change your name from viewer 3 to Mary or Joe or Billy Bob in the chat. But when we get to the Q&A session or section, and you want to actually talk to us, we're going to change take it out of presentation mode, put it in question and answer mode, so you'll be able to individually mute and unmute yourselves. And that would be via *6. And we'll explain that again when we get to that point. But it's so that everybody doesn't unmute themselves at the same time and start asking a question at the same time. We're going to use the chat window as the cue for the question and answer section. So if you have a question, when we get to that point, if you would just type into the chat to all caps, question. If you don't want to actually talk to us, you just want to ask the question, you can just go ahead and type the question in the chat window. If you want to talk to myself or our co-host, which is Ms. Dawn, change your last name, Ms. Dawn Wildman. She's our National Political Director. And if he's available to join us tonight, our General Counsel, Mr. Richard Fry. And we're hoping he'll show up eventually. And I see someone just joined, and I see viewer number 5 has changed her name. And I know who she is. It's good to see you. Good to see you from Colorado. I went back a screen. Let me scroll this one up a little bit. Patriot Coalition has a lot of different projects. It was co-founded by myself and one of the co-founders of the Fire Coalition, who's our executive director for both Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition, Mr. Jason Mochak. Fire Coalition's 10 years old. Patriot Coalition's 5 years old. We are merging both of those national coalitions into one umbrella, under one organizational name eventually, and that will be under Patriot Coalition. If you look on the screen now, you'll see we've got several projects. The ones on the right in yellow are Fire Coalition, which is Federal Immigration Reform and Enforcement Coalition. And there's also links, and I'll show you where you don't have to write any of this down, because we're going to introduce you to our new and improved website, or new improved parent website, which is still under construction, but it's far enough along that we can share it. And it has clickable links that will take you to all of these sites. On the left-hand side are uniquely Patriot Coalition websites, and both Fire and Patriot Coalition blogs. We've got Twitter accounts. The ones you see that are Patriot Watchdog, whether it's the Twitter account or the YouTube account, that's me. I started Patriot Watchdog back in 2006, and Patriot Watchdog was started out as a partner of Fire Coalition. And there's a lot of the videos and stuff that are there. We're going to eventually pare some of these down so they'll all be under Patriot Coalition to keep it simple. And that includes our Facebook links, Facebook pages, Blog Talk Radio shows. We've got about 6-7 months worth of archive Blog Talk Radio shows. We're still going to do the occasional Blog Talk Radio show. It'll be about 30 minutes long. So let me move over to, did I close all of this? Did not. All right. Right now, the new site we're developing as the parent site, the portal, the hub for all of our projects at both Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition is at instead of being at PatriotCoalition.com, it's at PatriotCoalition.org. And sometime within the next month, I'd like to say within the next week, but I'm a little overly optimistic, I find. But sometime soon, whether you go to .org or .com, it'll take you here. I'm going to go over to the homepage before we get into the show. And we've not fully developed, like I said, this new site's under construction, so we don't have a whole lot on the actual homepage. So if you look in the left-hand sidebar, all those project sites, including this webinar, is in the sidebar. And each one of these is a clickable link that will take you to all our different projects, to our YouTube channels, to our Facebook pages, and to our Twitter accounts. And that will eventually be in the sidebar as we some of these project sites and websites like the Fire Coalition, Operation Body Count, We Hire Aliens, and the Fire Coalition blog have been around for almost 10 years. And we're updating and moving everything into a more simplified, hopefully more user-friendly format inside WordPress, actually. So at your fingertips, you'll be able to find and access anything and everything we have available on any of the subjects. Obviously, we're on the home page. Our executive director and co-founder of Patriot Coalition is working on a new and improved mission statement. Our projects page is going to include a little, like you see here now on the home page, a more detailed description of all of these project sites that you see on the left. Right now I've got some of them on the home page so you can see get the big picture. And these are our most active projects that we've got right now. We've got scrollies making you dizzy on stuff. There's a contact page. On the shows and webinars page, which should be opening up here in a second, you'll find the links to our webinars and our radio shows. And after tonight, we're also going to embed the playlist of the webinars. And I'll take you to YouTube here to give you a sample or an idea. Now, On that list, we had two different YouTube accounts. One is PatriotWatchdog. The other one is Patriot Coalition. These are the playlists. So if you were to go, well, actually the links will bring you directly to the playlist page. But if for some reason you find yourself on our homepage, if you just go to the playlist, because we've got a lot of videos that for years we've been populating on the Patriot Watchdog YouTube account. And I think I still have, yeah, over here. We've just started moving a lot of those videos over to the Patriot Coalition's YouTube account and organizing them a little bit better. We have currently with videos populated on subjects that we've been addressing in great detail on the National Defense Authorization Act, on Agenda 21, and Article 5. And you'll see a new one in the list now with no videos, and that's Nation on Fire, and that's this weekly webinar show we're going to be doing. After tonight, the YouTube video archive of tonight's show will be in this list. And we'll have this, I've got a Nation on Fire playlist in both the Patriot Watchdog YouTube account and the Patriot Coalition YouTube account. So it doesn't matter which one of these you click on, you'll be able to find the archive for Nation on Fire. This link over here to the left is not going to take you to the archive. It's not going to take you to the shows and webinars pages or page. It's going to take you to the actual webinar. And that address, join.me, the one you use tonight, will be the same one every week. And if memory serves, or the way it's looking, the conference ID number, which was the number that was here, when you hit your pull down on the phone to get the conference number, or if you got an email, it was actually in the email. So the conference ID is a 9-digit number. I believe that that number will be the same every week. And there's like 4 different phone numbers. And depending on how busy Join Me is, you may not have the same number to call in every week. So when you first log on to joinme.com/Patriot Coalition, before you call in, or if you call my computer, it doesn't matter. It's just going to use your internet. Keep in mind, if you don't have a microphone, you're not going to be able to talk to us. So most laptops now have built-in microphones. Most desktop computers do not. You'll still be able to listen if you call in by computer. You just won't be able to talk to us. Let's see. What am I leaving out here on that? I think that's enough on that. We have got a ton of articles and PowerPoint presentations and videos, many of which we haven't formally published, that are going to find their way in here, and they'll end up being in the videos, on the videos page, and the articles page. So with all these different projects, why do we not have 2 rows of buttons? Well, the main Patriot Coalition website is intended to be a simple portal to a lot of information, and some of it is not information that we've developed, but it is from trusted sources. One of them, before I get into the meat and potatoes of the show, tonight's show, because tomorrow is Constitution Day. It's the anniversary of the signing of the U.S. Constitution, September 17th, 1787. On this Gateway to Congress page, and that's up here in the menu, Gateway to Congress. We've only got 6 links. The first one will take you directly to House.gov, where you can look up your member of Congress, the House of Representatives, that is. Find out what bills that they are sponsoring. There's a wide variety of, you can find their phone numbers for both their Washington, D.C. offices and their district offices. Those evil proverbial web forms where you can send them a letter. That'll get you a letter in the mail. 2 to 3 weeks later, that's probably a form letter. Most of y'all are probably familiar with C-SPAN. I didn't put C-SPAN on here because the House and the Senate actually have, and I'll open this one up, they actually have their own in-house live feeds. Now, it shows now that the House is in session and there are live floor proceedings going on, which is trying to load. If there were not live proceedings going on, if you scroll down, you can look for recent, they have an archive here. So recent archives of floor proceedings, earlier ones that day. Now this webinar is not going to let us actually listen to this. It'll be a little choppy. Let me shut this guy up. Well, there is no shutting him up. Oh, there it is. So if the House is in session and they're on the floor speaking, you don't have to go to C-SPAN and hunt it down. You can just come over here to the PatriotCoalition.org, Gateway to Congress, click on the live video feed. That'll open up this window. It'll also give you access to the clerk's office. If you want to know what the rules of the House are, the clerk's office is where you're going to find it. If you want member information about any member of the House of Representatives, this is where you can find it. If you want to know about committees, what committees there are and who the members are, it's all right here at your fingertips. And there's also the library. And that's get this thing to go back. U.S. House Live Video Feed. Same thing with the Senate. Senate has its own separate one. Done a little bit differently. There's no live floor proceedings, so there won't be a video. But if they held proceedings earlier today, or really it shows them going back for some time. You know, remember now they were off for the month of August, so there's going to be a gap here. But there's video archives, and you can go back and look at video proceedings for the past couple of years. Just on and actually if you look down here at the bottom, there's numerous pages of archived videos. And this is just a chronological list, but you can also search. And there's a ton of information you can learn about the Senate. Bills, resolutions that are introduced, treaties they're working on, the record, look at the calendar. If you're planning a trip to go see your congressman or senator, you can get the calendar for the whole year. If you want to check the votes on a specific bill or nominations for the Supreme Court or for some executive branch position that requires Senate confirmation. Tons of information about the Senate. One-stop link to U.S. Senate live video. And the same thing I told you about the House.gov applies to Senate.gov. If you want some additional resources to check out get information about bills, about Congress, Congress.gov. If you're familiar with the old Thomas, it was at the Library of Congress. It was thomas.loc.gov. They're in, that was the official place I would always go to look at bills, actual bills, not rely on third-party, something somebody's posted on the website as to what a bill says. I want to know what the actual bill says, or if it's been amended, or who's made amendments to it. The best place to go is a source, and the new Thomas site is now called congress.gov, and this is a direct link to that. And this one is stealing my page instead of opening up a new one. But you can check current legislation. You can look at you can search for treaties, and when it says on the Thomas site, that's what it's talking about, is the Library of Congress site. Tons of information on the new site. Gives you leadership, et cetera. Find all that from the congress.gov link. And GovTrack is a third-party congressional tracking organization that's nonpartisan. You can find a lot of information there as well about bills, hearings, etc. All of that you find at the Gateway to Congress link. This is under the founding documents. Just because I didn't want to have another row. The U.S. Constitution and all 50 state constitutions. No matter where you live, if you'll pull the founding documents down and go to the state constitutions page, this is actually information derived from the Cornell Law Library, which is one of the official university system law libraries that keeps track of the U.S. Code, the federal laws. It also has archived Supreme Court cases going back 200 years. You won't find every case there, but you can find a lot of cases there. Now, it doesn't look like it here because they're not your typical clickable link is highlighted blue, but every one of these is a clickable link. And since I know there's a nice lady from Colorado in the meeting with us tonight, I'm just going to click on Colorado to give you an example of what you'll see when you go here. Because it's not just the Constitution for Colorado that you'll find at this page on Cornell. You get the Colorado Constitution, their state laws, pending bills that are active in the General Assembly, a link to their legislature, to their judiciary, regulations. I mean, there's a ton of information that's at your fingertips just from this one site that starts with the link to the Colorado State Constitution that you'll find in the founding documents pull-down menu. All 50 state constitutions brings you here. I clicked on her state. That pulled up this at Cornell University Law School. Tons of access to state and local government in your state. And we have that for all 50 states. Let's see. What am I leaving out, ladies? Dawn? B? You got yourselves muted, obviously.
Yes, we were actively listening. You have covered everything. I mean, I'm even impressed with us. Mostly you, but...
No, this is all us because we've been working on the development of this website, this new website, since, June? I think. We started this in June. And we could have certainly thrown, we weren't working on it every day because we've got so much going on. But I can tell you between our Director of Operations, Dee, and our National Marketing, National Political Director, Dawn, our National Marketing Director, Kathy, who I don't think is here yet, or here tonight, and our General Counsel and our Executive Director. There's been a lot of input from a lot of different people to help us put this stupid, simple site together. It doesn't have a lot of fancy whistles and bells and flashy things for you to look at. It is intended to be an information resource hub.
Yeah, we wanted to give you guys exactly what we know activists look for, because all of us, having done stuff for so long, you know how it is when you go to 50 million sites looking for one piece of information. You got to figure out, you can't remember the name of such and such. We wanted to make sure, I think what we built was the site that we would all like to go to when we look for information. So it's geared from the person who just wants to know something right now, isn't really an activist, to I think really the seasoned activist, to give them that one-stop shopping and the ability to get a hold of everything they want to know without having to look all over and hunt all over the place for it. So we definitely kept all of you guys in mind because, you do this long enough, we all share those horror stories. So
absolutely. She's trying to say this just me. No, I'm just the one that's had to suffer through the actual webmastering part. But they've all been over my shoulders and breathing down my neck saying, no, it looks better over here. No, don't do that. So
yeah,
if it's good, I'll take the credit. If it's bad, you can blame the girl.
Yeah, we've been mothering the website and you at the same time. But
absolutely,
it is all coming together, and it really is coming together in a way that hopefully you guys find really, really useful. The surprise has been, but in a good way too, is that going back to try to consolidate everything, we find all this other great work product that we've had that we're like, you know what? Blogs and things that Richard has written or Jeff has written, unfortunately, they're still very relevant today as they were 5 or 6 years ago. So it's really cool finding all that information. We've had such a wealth of it between the two organizations and all the projects. So it's actually been kind of this labor of love going back. It's like looking through the box of old photos that we do from time to time.
Absolutely. Now, I can tell you that the only sites some of these project sites we've had for years. The only ones that we've moved over so far to the new format, actually America's 11th Hour, we created from scratch in this new format, and Rejoin or Die. Everything else, except for the main one here, are still in the old format. And it's going to take us some time, probably 6 months to a year, to actually consolidate and move all the everything that we've got a decade's worth of research and information and articles over, so it's easy to find.
But that's the great part of this. So is that every week, we'll have the ability to update you and let you know what's moved over to the new site, or because we're going to be just as excited about you guys, as you guys would be, when we find stuff that we go, oh, yeah, we haven't talked about this in a while, and look, this blog you wrote 7 years ago about this, we can update what has happened since then, and that's kind of the exciting part, is that it brings you back down into all of those great projects and gives us the ability to update them for everybody as we're combining everything.
I've got my mouse hovering over something that it was like Christmas when I found it. Because used to, if you're not familiar with what Eliot's debates are, and I'm going to use this other window just to show you, and I think it was at well, if we can learn how to type, yeah. you had to go to the National Archives and search for Eliot's debates. I know where to find it. But if you didn't know, and it's not going to find it. Now I know it's there. But where is it? It's either Amen or Amen. Amen. Well, let's see. Okay, it was memory. Memory.loc.gov. So it was in the Amen section, but it was up there. So when you would go to these, there's 5 volumes of Eliot's debate. Now we're looking at the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or subsequent amendments. If you want to have a good idea of how to interpret what you're seeing on the page, it helps to know what they were saying about it when they were debating it, when they were adopting it and ratifying it. And Eliot's debates is the most comprehensive compilation that was contemporaneous, means it was done while most of the founders were still alive, and several of them put their stamp of approval on it as to its accuracy, and several of them contributed their own personal papers to Mr. Eliot to put this set together. But if you were going to go look at, say, Volume 4, this is a perfect example of the government wanting to make it difficult for us. You can't search this. It's a photocopy of the actual page from the book. Well, that's nice if you're wanting to verify that what you're finding somewhere else, this is exactly what they said, but you can't search it. So I spent a few years having to search through these photocopy images page by page to find information about what was going on. And some of it you just kind of hit and miss because you can actually type in a page number and go, and it'll take you to that page. This is part of, just happens to be, from Volume 4, the North Carolina Ratification Convention, rather. But I can't search it. I can't cut and paste it. Well, I finally found one from eMilitary Books Online that I could purchase. And it was like $15. I was like a kid in a candy store. I finally got one that I can search that's in PDF format. Well, it was a PDF of this photocopy. And it was still kind of choppy if you were trying to search it. It was still choppy if you were trying to cut and paste it. You'd have to you're almost better off if you do it quicker to transcribe it yourself than have to cut and paste something because it didn't always recognize the characters. And then I found this. But if you go to PatriotCoalition.org, Founding Documents, go to the bottom, hit Eliot's Debates, it's going to take you to our Eliot's Debates page. Right here at the top, there's a link to where I was just showing you at the Library of Congress. And this is the introduction. These are also from all these links through here are directly at the Library of Congress, including the Federalist Papers, which are not part of Eliot's debate, totally separate. Most people, at least activists, are familiar with the Federalist Papers or have heard of them. Not that many, unfortunately, are familiar with Eliot's debates. But if you'll go here, to the bottom of our Eliot's Debates page, show you again real quick how I got there, Founding Documents, Eliot's Debates, take you to the Eliot's Debates page, go to the bottom. These are PDFs that you can download of all 5 volumes. And I'm going to open up that same one we were looking at the Library of Congress, Volume 4. And these were compiled, and you'll see once it finishes loading it. and it's going to take it a second because it's kind of hefty file size. The Online Library of Liberty. This is an ebook. They have it in an HTML format. They've got it for your Kindle. They've got like 4 or 5 different formats. And if you click on the links in this PDF, it'll take you to the Online Library of Liberty at libertyfund.org. And you can search for various members of the Founding Fathers or the Framers. But this version, it's not only searchable, even the table of contents. If we wanted to look at the Virginia Resolutions of 1798 from the table of contents, just click on it, and it'll take you to that page. And now this, just volume 4, it's 579 pages. Between all 5 volumes, it's probably 3,000 or 4,000 pages of transcriptions of the First and Second Continental Congress, the Annapolis Convention, the Philadelphia Convention, the various state ratification conventions. I mean, there's a whole litany of information, a wealth of information that you can glean. And like I said, with that other version, when you went to copy and paste it, it was choppy. Oops. This is not. It grabs everything, and it's a perfect transcription. So if you're putting together an article, or you're wanting to quote one of the framers, I've not found a better go-to source than the 5 volumes of Eliot's Debates. So you find various versions of these online. These are the absolute best ones I've run across. I just found these over the summer. I've been using the ones that I purchased that I couldn't share with the public because it's copyrighted. But these are not. As long as, and that's why you see when I opened it up, I didn't rebrand this and take credit from these folks. They've done an excellent job. And there's a direct link right at the top. So I've not made any changes to this is their PDF. I've just parked it on our server so you won't have to go try and hunt them down. And just come to our website, go to Founding Documents, Eliot's Debates, or you can come down here, download all these, and have them on your computer, and you won't even have to come see us. Although I don't know why you would want to, because we might have something new. But this is really good stuff here. Same thing with the Federalist Papers. If you've seen print versions of it, and this is taking you to our Federalist Papers. There's 85 essays of the Federalist. We've got right here at the top a direct link to where you can go look at it at the Library of Congress, where you can download a searchable PDF like I was just showing you with Eliot's Debates that was compiled by Penn State. There's the link to that. This section here, this about the Federalist Papers stuff, was taken directly from the Library of Congress about the Federalist Papers. And the same links that I had at the top of the page where you can go read them at the Federalist Papers, or if you want to download the PDF of all 85 essays in one document, we've got that parked on our server, and there's the link to that. Now, our job is to teach people how to fish and how to do their own research. There's 300 plus million of us. We've got less than a dozen people in our brain trust, our national staff at Patriot Coalition, that's doing a lot of research and development of websites and projects and model legislation. But we can't save the country as much as we'd like to restore constitutional governance so we could go back to having a real life. we can't do it. We need help, and we want you to have the tools you need to do your own research or to verify what other people are telling you about what happened during the founding era, what the Constitution means. So, I've not been able to look at the chat. I see a question that's sitting there now. Did I miss anything earlier? I'm going to scroll up.
Nope, that was the first one. And it said, is this chat room and or these calls also for COS people to listen to and participate, or is this website is what we are talking about? And basically this is open to anyone that wants to learn. It's open to the public. Our website and the webinars are open to public.
Absolutely. It's for Joe and Jane citizens. We have two audiences at the Patriot Coalition and Power Coalition. We the people and the people we elect. And whether we agree with our fellow citizens and some of the other organizations out there or not, we try to do what Jefferson said and inform their discretion with education. But and sometimes we're able to make some headway, but some folks actually have nefarious agendas driving them to do what they do. We don't have any hidden agendas. So whether we agree or get along with the national leadership of some of the other groups out there or not, we've got a decade of experience working with their own people at the state and local level, educating them so they can make informed decisions. And there's been times where, as an outside organization, confronting or trying to inform national leadership at another group that they don't want to listen to us, but we can educate their folks that are inside, and they will listen to an insider more often than they'll listen to an outsider at times. What our general counsel says, and we kind of morphed this from a quote we ran across, and we don't know who to give credit to, but we did modify it a little bit to simplify it. And as Counselor Pride says, when an honest man finds he's wrong, he either stops being wrong or he stops being honest. And we like to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're being honest with us about both the history, about what our Constitution means, and about what their intentions are with whatever it is they're selling. But we all know that that's not always the case, especially dealing with politicians and special interest groups. See, is there anything else in here? I think I pulled up. Actually, I didn't pull it up. The Federalist Papers, the downloadable, searchable PDF. I said there's a link at both the top and the bottom of the page. I'm going to pull that up real quick. And this is 400 pages. This compilation was put together by Penn State. And somewhere down here it says as much. Pennsylvania State University is who did this. Jim Maness oversaw the compilation. You can read all about it there. And it also, if you notice as I'm rolling my mouse over the content, they're turning yellow. That's because all of these, for all 85 essays, are themselves clickable links. One of my favorites is something that's in Federalist 81, written by Hamilton. Now, if I was going to search for it, specific quote, but Federalist 81 talks about one of the issues that we've been addressing for the past 4 years, which is Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, on original jurisdiction. And somewhere in here, in Federalist 81, and this search, I was using the browser, but if I was to actually maybe make this go a little quicker. I'll do it this way. Yeah. I didn't find my wording. Let me just go down to back to the table of contents. Scroll down to Federal Stating 1. Hamilton was explaining why they only gave the Supreme Court original jurisdiction over cases in which a state was a party. So maybe if I just search for the keyword dignity. Yes. Blow this up just a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. He said in cases in which a state might happen to be a party, it would ill-suit its dignity to be turned over to an inferior tribunal. If the states were indeed sovereign, and if Counselor Fry was here, he'd tell you, a sovereign can only be sued by its own consent. The king, you couldn't sue the king unless the king said you could sue the king. Well, in America, we the people were the sovereign, and the state, the cloaked in the sovereignty of the people, when they put together the Constitution, they kept that to themselves to protect their sovereign status, that if there was a grievance between a sovereign state and the United States, that the only court in the federal court system that had jurisdiction to address that, to hear that case, in the first instance, as to both law and fact, is the Supreme Court. And you say, well, how do I know that? Because I can go here, just at a couple of clicks, go to the Constitution page, and we have the entire U.S. Constitution, and this was transcribed directly from the Library of Congress. If I was to go down to Article 3, I think that was 2, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and those in which the state shall be party. That's the first part of it was dealing with foreign sovereigns. Second part, and those in which a state shall be party. That's the domestic sovereigns, the sovereign state. The Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction, period. No comma there, or semicolon, the period. In all the other cases, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction. Now, we've written an article talking about the Obamacare and the Arizona SB 1070 lawsuits that was 2 years in the making because it took the court cases that long to wind its way through the federal district courts and then the appeals courts. And finally, they were appealed to the Supreme Court. But you won't find in here anywhere where it gives the Supreme Court appellate jurisdiction over cases in which a sovereign is involved, sovereign state, or the sovereign representative of, say, the ambassador of Great Britain or France, or their attorneys or consuls. So it is our position that the Supreme Court rulings on Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and Arizona's SB 1070 immigration law is null and void, and that the Supreme Court itself committed treason to the Constitution when they first refused to take those cases away from the lower courts, and then when they decided that they were going to take those cases on appeal. They didn't have any constitutional authority to do either. And as Chief Justice John Marshall said in Collins v. Virginia in 1821, for them to do either was treason to the Constitution. Well, that's one of those articles that's not yet published over here. But I do have it handy, and if anybody wants it, You give me a second here, because I'm not going to take a ton of time to read it to you. But we'll pull it up real quick in the PDF. We sent scarlet letters to Chief Justice, hand-delivered to the Supreme Court, what we refer to as scarlet letters, informing the Chief Justice's duty back in August of 2010, Friday the 13th of August 2010, because the court cases against Obamacare and Arizona's SB 1070 were introduced in June of 2012. I mean, June of 2010. And then June of 2012, 2 years after the initial filings, the Supreme Court passed down these rulings. This is a 10-page article, and the link to this article, I thought was in the footer here, and it's not. Well, I can tell you that the link is the same as the name, PatriotCoalition.com. So I typed it up here for you to see. Because this will be in the video. In our docs folder. Get this over here on the page where you can see it. If you want that article, type that into your browser. And just to confirm that I'm remembering it correctly, I'm going to do it myself. I'm not telling you wrong. Yep. So patriotcoalition.com/docs/SCOTUS-ruling-rolling.pdf will get you access to that document. And there's the link again. If you haven't read it, and there's several, I mentioned letters we wrote to Chief Justice Roberts, to Virginia's Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, to Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer. There's links to those letters that have, each one of those has a ton of information. There's links to the federal statutes that are themselves unconstitutional, that need to be fixed. We need, and the reason I'm spending a little bit of time on this, we need strong state governments to stand up in defense of our God-given rights. We need a strong state government to stand in between we the people and a rogue federal government. If they won't uphold, if they won't even defend the state, you can sure bet that these state legislators aren't going to defend we the people and protect our rights against intrusions by the federal government. And more often than not, they're taking bribe monies and grant monies via various federal programs that the federal government's not supposed to be involved in, has no authority to tax us to take the money, no authority to give it to the states. The states have no authority to take the money. I mean, we're getting the three-card Monty and the rope-a-dope all the way around. But there is hope. Knowledge is power. And the more informed we become about the principles of liberty and about how our Constitution, our constitutional republic is put together, the more armed we are. So in the founding documents, I showed you the Constitution. Well, that is just and this is that proverbial question that I ask a lot of Patriot groups and Tea Party groups and public servants and military officers. A simple question of how many articles are in the Constitution? how many articles. If you can't answer that simplest of questions as to how many there are, you probably don't know enough about what's in them either, and none of us do. There are 7. God gave us one for every day of the week. 27 amendments, 7 articles. You think of bowling, 727, 7 articles, 27 amendments. That's where we are today. Same thing with the Bill of Rights. We've got those on a separate page. We hear about the preamble to the Constitution, not much about that there's a preamble to the Bill of Rights. Well, this first bit, before you get to the First Amendment, is the preamble to the Bill of Rights. This also came directly from the Library of Congress. It's really a direct cut and paste. It's not even retranscribed. And then there's the first 10 amendments. And we kept them a little bit separate, but we've actually got all 27 amendments listed. And you can source it here. You can cut and paste it into articles, into whatever you want to use it for. And again, like I said, we've been to several site pages. If you notice on the left-hand side, there's links to lots of our project sites that we're not even going to get into tonight. I just want to give you an overview of what we've got to offer, what's available at your fingertips. Tomorrow's Constitution Day. 7 years ago, and it actually wasn't on the 17th, it was on the 19th, we held a press conference on Capitol Hill with 7 members of Congress. It was our Constitution Week press conference that we did. It was our first big press conference on Capitol Hill. That was with Fire Coalition. And a lot of the things that were talked about that day, and the videos are available on going back that far in the PatriotWatchdog video archive on YouTube. If you want to go back and watch the videos from that press conference. But we were under attack by globalists in 2007. There was the battle to try and get the border secure, to get our immigration laws enforced. We were trying to stop the North American Union and the NAFTA superhighway, Agenda 21, and sustainable development. Those were all components of that. The battles that we're fighting today are the same battles that a lot of activists have been engaged in, fighting, some of them for decades. And if we don't chop at the root of the problem, it was Thoreau said that, and I paraphrase this, there's 1,000 whacking at the limbs of evil to 1 chopping at the roots. Well, the root that we need to chop at first, I didn't think it was going to take an hour and 6 minutes to get into this. But if we don't build, our country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And whether you're a Christian or religious or not, the fact that our country and our form of government, our supreme law of the land, was based on those Judeo-Christian principles is a blessing to you and to your children, because there's never been a country before or since that has gone to such lengths to protect your individual rights as the United States. They did that based on their faith and courage. If you look here at our main menu, you'll see faith and courage and then allegiance and protection before you get to the founding documents. And there's a reason for that. We win, you win some, you lose some. Our co-founder and executive director, Jason Rochek, says, the first time I think I heard him say this with such seriousness was this week. In fact, I think if I was to look at the calendar real quick here, bear with me for a second. And this thing's slow. I didn't want to misspeak. A couple more months to go back to get to 7 years ago, September. It was. 7 years ago today, I got a phone call from the then National Director of Fire Coalition, and I was Deputy Director. Mr. Mrochek lived in San Diego at the time. I lived in North Carolina. I'm in Washington, D.C., awaiting his arrival because we've got a press conference we're doing on the 19th. Because Congress wasn't going to be there on Constitution Day. They were coming back on Tuesday. So we were actually scheduled the press conference for the middle of the week, the 19th. But 7 years ago today, I got a phone call. Now, because I lived on the East Coast and it was easier for me to go to D.C. because I'm not 3,000 miles away, I had been the mouthpiece, spokesperson in a lot of things that we did in Washington. But we wanted the national director for this event. So he'd spent the previous week to 10 days preparing a speech that he was going to give at this press conference with all these members of Congress. At least two of them were presidential candidates that year, or had thrown their hat in the ring to run for president. And I get a phone call from him that day that he's not coming. And he had good reasons. And his priorities were, as he put it, God, family, country, self, in that order. And he had his priorities straight. And that was the week. I really didn't find out until probably later in that week, but it was 7 years ago today that the domino fell where I took over as National Director for Fire Coalition. I thought it was going to be a temporary position, that I'd get my Deputy Director job back in short order. Didn't happen. And I still tell him every now and then he can have his job back any time. And then I'll take either Dawn or Dee's job back because they've both got jobs that I used to have with Fire Coalition. But God, family, country, self is the order. And that's why faith and courage is first in this menu list. The Founding Fathers had faith. And if we restore our faith, we got on our money, in God we trust. If we restore our faith in God and do what's right, He'll take care of the rest. Our job's not to win. Our job's to do what's right. I encourage you to go. I'm not going to get all preachy to you and read all this to you. But the Faith and Courage button or menu button and Faith and Courage page will give you some of our perspective. Hebrews 11:3 that talks about faith, in Psalms 31 about be of good courage. John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. He was right. If we don't restore our faith and get back to doing God's will, God's work, America's gone. So you'll find more information here about that. We've been fighting an Article 5 battle. See, I got another question here. Is PatriotCoalition.com going away and PatriotCoalition.org is its replacement? Yes and no. The .com site, the PatriotCoalition.com site, as you know it now, will eventually, that site will disappear, and all the information that's there will be over here. And once we get enough of that information over from the .com site to here, we're just going to redirect the .com address to this site. So whether you type in PatriotCoalition.org or PatriotCoalition.com, they will both bring you here. So there's a lot of things that are still over on the .com site that you won't that aren't here yet. That's why that site is still up. Same thing with FireCoalition.com. We have not tackled that one. We decided to tackle the parent site first in our transitioning. And if that doesn't answer your question well enough, Colorado, ask me again, more specific. But we've been fighting an effort to trigger an Article 5 convention for a little over a year now. We've been looking at it and following it for 4 years, well, almost 5 years now. But for the past year, it has been job one to educate people about why it's not only not a good solution, it's not a solution at all for what ails our country. And one of our main adversaries on this issue is the Convention of States Project Director, Mr. Michael Ferris, who is fond of saying that we have two constitutions, the one that the founders gave us, and then the one is interpreted by the Supreme Court. Well, that's a lie. And I initially would say that's a lie, that we only have one, that they're misinterpreting or misapplying or usurping it is treason to the Constitution. It doesn't make it another Constitution. But then I got to thinking about it a little bit more, about a speech I gave at Valley Forge, also in August of 2010, in which I actually had what I said, we have three constitutions. We should have a personal constitution, and if you're religious, you're a Christian, then that ought to be God's Word, the Bible. But whether you're religious or not, you should have a personal set of principles and values that you hold yourself to, a set of standards. That's your personal constitution. If you're a United States citizen, then you should also be familiar with your state constitution, because that's the supreme law of the state land, and the state government employee handbook, the very people that should be standing between you and a rogue federal government, and then thirdly, the federal Constitution. And I said the preamble of the Constitution sums up our duty with these words. And when people say the original intent, and I did this myself for years, the original intent of the Constitution, well, if you go read the preamble to the Constitution has never been amended. It's not the original intent, it's the intent. And until we amend the preamble to the Constitution, till we amend the Constitution itself, the intent is the same, and the words mean what they meant when they were written, not what people want them to mean today. And the primary duty in the preamble, the most fundamental, and it lists several things, but the fundamental thing was to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So if you want to know more about your personal constitution, if you're religious, we've also got a link to BibleGateway.com. You want to look at your faith, and I've got quotes in here, or links. It's defaulting to King James, but regardless of which Bible you're familiar with or prefer, or you want to compare, you want to look at them in different languages, this is an excellent site to go to, BibleGateway.com, and that link is at the bottom. I'll close that, of our Faith and Courage page. So get your. I tell folks that you restore your faith, God will give you courage to do what's right. What comes next? allegiance and protection. Now, there's a whole lot we could have wrote about this, and we actually put this page up just this afternoon, and it's sort of a compilation of several different articles that our General Counsel has written over the past couple of years about it, but we're trying to keep it simple. But as Counselor Fry references here, I strongly encourage you to go read this entire. And this isn't a marathon. It's a short article, and there's references and links, clickable links in the footnotes to everything except the court cases. And I'm probably going to add the links to those court cases too. So if you want to go read those to validate the position that he's taken here. But allegiance and protection predated the Constitution. It's the relationship that exists. It's that inherent relationship between a people and government. Before there were even governments, if you look at our loyalty to God and God's law, God protects those who are loyal to Him. We have a duty to protect what He's given us, those inalienable rights endowed by our Creator, which I summarize as our God-given rights. We have a duty of allegiance to God to protect those rights. We don't have the authority to give those rights away or to allow others to take them away for ourselves or our posterity. And that's what the preamble to the Constitution established and acknowledged and recognized. The Declaration of Independence laid it out as to who we were and where our rights come from. They don't come from man. They come from our Creator. And the Constitution was put into place to protect those rights. But none of that will uphold itself. But as Counselor Fry wrote here, the concept of allegiance and protection was mentioned by the Apostle Paul 3 times. And the footnote 1, if you go down to the footnotes, there's a direct link to those. He's got it cited chapter and verse. And if you click on the Allegiance and Protection in the Bible link, it'll take you directly to that Bible Gateway page, except it'll take you directly to Acts 16. So you can look up and read these actual 3 different instances where the Apostle Paul talked about allegiance and protection in the Bible. The Declaration of Independence talks about it 3 times. It's the allegiance that you refer to when you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands. Well, the republic is us. It's the people. You're pledging allegiance to your fellow countrymen, which is your neighbors, your family, your community, your state, your country. And then there's several Supreme Court cases which have acknowledged the principles of allegiance and protection. And something that I don't have it published, and I just noticed this myself in the past month or so, and you may find it in some of your original state constitutions, but the North Carolina Constitution from 1776, so 6 months after, the first part's the Declaration of Rights. But when it gets into the actual Constitution, other than saying when and where it was put together, the very first declarative clause talks about allegiance and protection. It's whereas allegiance and protection are in their nature reciprocal, and the one should of right be refused when the other is withdrawn. You read the Declaration of Independence, they made indictments against King George for having removed us from his protection. He declared war against us. He waged war on us. He had dropped his allegiance and protection of the people. And we've got those sites in the footnotes on the Allegiance and Protection page, just to keep it simple, from the Declaration of Independence. And if you want to go read the rest of it, There's a direct link to it. What's the duty? The duty of government, especially state and local government, in today's world, is to interpose. It's not to nullify. You can't nullify a law that is written in pursuance of the Constitution, because if it's written in pursuance of the Constitution, you have a duty to uphold it. If you don't like it, change the Constitution or change the law. If it's not written in pursuance of the Constitution, it's not a law at all. There's nothing to nullify, and the duty is to interpose. And one of the arguments that we're hearing made in the Article 5 battle is a comparison between triggering an Article 5 convention or doing nullification, state nullification. Well, that's a couple different rabbit holes there, because it presumes that they're on equal footing, that they're both possible or potential solutions to the problem of what ails our country. Triggering an Article 5 convention to rein in an out-of-control government, whether it's the federal government or the state government, is as a pipe dream. If they won't uphold it now, and you change the words on the paper, that's not going to make anybody who's already taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution uphold it. And there's a whole bunch of misconceptions and lies by omission that are being made by various proponents of an Article 5 convention, that if you'll go here and look at these original documents, look at the Federalist Papers, look at there's 5 volumes of the Elliott's debates, you can find anything and everything you want to know from the original source documents, ratification convention minutes, and minutes of the Philadelphia Convention, even stuff from the First Congress, from the Articles of Confederation, from the Declaration. There's just tons of information at your fingertips between these two, just between the Federalist Papers and Elliott's debates. It's 6, because there's 5 books, 5 volumes in this, and 1 PDF of this that has all 85 essays. So really 85, 91 documents compressed into 6, wealth of information. And between the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, access to all your state constitutions, the Federalist Papers, and all 5 volumes of Elliott's debates, I dare say you'll be hard-pressed to find more information under one pull-down menu about our nation's founding on any website, anywhere. That's this simple and this complete. If you think there's something there that we should have, and maybe the Anti-Federalist Papers, possibly, and that's something we're considering adding here, because a lot of the arguments that they made are also valid. But these were the ones that prevailed that convinced the states to adopt the Constitution. So, we went through faith and courage, allegiance and protection, founding documents, showed you where the Constitution is. I mentioned a few minutes ago about the preamble. They talk about the original intent. Preamble is pretty short. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. You don't see a little footnote here that says amended by some future amendment. And when you look at the Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments to the Constitution, you won't see anything in there that says amended by. You will see in some of the future amendments between 11 and 27, for example, the 18th. And I'll just scroll down to the 18th. And I said, these all came directly from the Library of Congress. So if something looks like it's spelled funny, it's because that's the way they wrote it. The 18th Amendment was prohibition, and you'll see the annotation when it was ratified, but you also see that it was repealed by the 21st Amendment. You'll see parts of the Constitution that will say amended by, like, the 12th Amendment. Changed parts of, the 11th Amendment. Changed parts of Article 3, Section 2 was modified by the 11th Amendment. You won't see anything like this about the Bill of Rights. Nowhere in the Constitution or in any amendment after the Bill of Rights that says amended by. You could repeal the Bill of Rights, and it wouldn't change anything in the Constitution. It wouldn't change anything about where our rights come from. It wouldn't change anything about our duty to protect those rights that didn't come from man, that come from God. If man grants it, it's a privilege. When we let our principles become preferences and our rights become privileges, we are asking for and will end up slaves. We're asking for and inviting and enabling and empowering tyranny. In another hour and a half, it will be Constitution Day. If you don't have one of the groups we work with is the National Center for Constitutional Studies. If you don't have pocket constitutions, now you can get them directly from Congress, you can get them from Cato and Heritage. I like the ones that come from the National Center for Constitutional Studies. It was founded by Dr. Cleon Skousen, the guy that wrote the 5,000-Year League. They have some excellent webinars, online webinars. If you can get 50 people to agree to attend their all-day seminar, they won't charge anything for the seminar, and they'll fly an instructor from somewhere around the country come give their Making of America one-day seminar. They like a $10 donation for the workbook, the handout. But for $500, you can get an instructor to come from the National Center for Constitutional Studies to do an all-day seminar on the Making of America to teach the principles of liberty and to explain the process. And this is a crash course. They also have a 13-week course that's like a 7-DVD set that you can get. They've got videos on YouTube where you can just watch the webinar of the Miracle of America and the Making of America. But if you don't have pocket constitutions that you can give out to friends and family and neighbors, you can buy them in bulk for like $35 for 100, and that includes free shipping. So essentially 35 cents a piece. And it's got the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, all the amendments, all 27 amendments, and 2 or 3 pages of some interesting quotes at the front end. They've got a lot of good information. Highly recommend you check out nccs.net. Get you some pocket constitutions and be like Johnny Appleseed with them. Make Constitution Day matter. You know, we've got an election coming up here in a couple of months, less than 2 months away. It's a little late to start, but if you don't understand the principles of liberty, if you don't understand faith and courage, allegiance and protection, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, your state constitution. When these candidates come around asking for your vote for me, I'll do you right. You won't know what questions to ask. You won't know what answers to expect. They're going to tell you what they think you want to hear so that they'll get your vote. Well, that's not where the duty ends. If you did a good job of vetting your candidate, his character, his integrity, and the fact that he has a working knowledge of the principles of liberty, of the Constitution that he's going to take an oath to uphold, and once he gets into office, you still need to keep an eye on him. And Jefferson said, paraphrasing again, hear no more about putting trust in man, but bind him down from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. Well, whose job is it to do that binding them down? Us. And if our government sucks, if it's abusing us, if it's abusing and stepping on our God-given right, whose fault is it? Ours. And nobody can fix it but us, with God's help. But he's not going to help if we're not worthy of his help. So when you're building your foundation to go out and take on the world, take on your local government, your state government, national government, you need to start with faith and courage. Get a firm grip on allegiance and protection, and then wrap your mind around the founding documents and the supreme law of the land. And teach to your neighbors, to your kids. But we've got, I'm looking over here in the chat for a second. What did I leave out, Dawn? D? I don't know that we've embedded videos yet on here. We may have, no, we've not.
Sounds like you've pretty much covered a ton.
Real quick on, since it's one of my favorite topics these days, between myself and our general counsel, we've debated people from the Convention of States Project from Alaska to Virginia and parts in between. A lot of those videos, I think we've got about, 18 videos in the Article 5 playlist. And you can find out at either Patriot Coalition playlist, and that link was this link here in the sidebar. And you'll find the same folder with the same videos at Patriot Watchdog on YouTube. And that both of them will take you directly, both of these links take you directly to the playlist. I recommend you watch these videos. We've got about an hour and a half webinar on Article 5 that doesn't start with Article 5. It starts with the principles of liberty and an explanation of federalism and how our constitutional republic is supposed to work and the relationships between the central government, which is in Washington, the state government, and the people, because we all have a role in the federal government. We use that term loosely, just referring to Washington. Really, the federal government and Republican form of government involves more than just D.C. At the beginning of this webinar, I think I said that it was going to be about 2 hours. It's actually an hour and 33 minutes long. This is the PowerPoint presentation that we give across the country. If you'd like either me or our general counsel, depending on where you are in the country, to come give this presentation live, and we've got some updated information that's not in here. You need to talk to our Director of Operations, Dee Sadler, and you can get a hold of her by writing. I'm going to cheat again eventually. I get the right window up here. If you want a presentation, send an email to d@PatriotCoalition.com.
I put it in the chat, Jeff.
Okay. Well, that's thank you, but that won't help the people that are watching the video of this.
That is true.
Trying to cover both bases. She's our Director of Operations and the gatekeeper. Richard and I will come do live presentations. There are expenses involved. We don't charge an honorarium, but we're all volunteer. None of us get paid for what we're doing. Cheapest way is to cover our travel expenses, put us up and feed us, and we'll be happy. And we'll do a presentation on any constitutional subject or issue that you like, but you got to go through her to get to us because she keeps our schedules and knows when and where we're supposed to be. And she's a super nice lady.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Are you at liberty where we can discuss a couple of the states where you're going to be? You have appointments coming up here this fall. If there are groups in that area.
Yes. November. I'm going to say the second week of November.
Is it?
Well, we're going to be there more than just that day.
That's true.
The second week of November, at least 2, if not 3 of us are going to Arizona. Our General Counsel, Richard Fry, Dawn Wildman, our National Political Director, who's been is my co-host, but she's making me do most of the talking tonight.
Well, this is the intro, and so these are your babies. And
yes, ma'am.
I'll remind you of that one day when you can't shut me up.
Oh, no. I welcome it. That's why you're here. But November 13th, we're doing a briefing in the Arizona Senate on Article 5 in the morning. That's strictly for legislators. In the afternoon, we're doing a public debate. In the, I don't know if it's going to be in the Senate chambers or in the Senate Majority Caucus chambers, but it's also in the Arizona Senate on Article 5. In addition to that, we're going to be doing some presentations and speaking events for probably 3 or 4 days leading up to that. That's November 13th in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got some events coming in up in October that aren't quite nailed down yet. One of them got postponed. So I'll wait and tell you about those next week. I should have more information on those. I believe November 14th we'll be in Cincinnati doing a presentation at the, if everything gets worked out, the Constitution Party National Convention or winter conference, which is a thing. Well, anyway, we're doing a presentation for the Constitution Party. We work with really any group, any political party. Most of us are unaffiliated. I believe what George Washington said about partisanship.
Exactly. Well, all the founders weren't thrilled with the idea of partisanship because, hello, they knew this would happen.
Right. But I got a little sidetracked there. On the Article 5 playlist, there are several debates that we've had, plus a few informational videos that we put together. I attended the second round of the Mount Vernon Assembly that was held in the Indiana State House in Indianapolis, June 12th and 13th. I've got probably 8 to 10 hours of video that I recorded of the actual sessions they had, the main assembly of state legislators and the Rules Committee, because they had 3 different committees that they did breakouts of, that we've not shared any of that video yet. We've got some video that I just got approval today on of some excellent constitutional wisdoms from Dr. Edwin Vieira that our General Counsel and I spent, got about 3 hours worth of video with him back in, I think it was April. And we're putting together an Article 5 DVD with such experts as Dr. Vieira, Tom DeWeese from American Policy Center, Charles Key, who's an expert on the informed jury and jury nullification. He's an Oklahoma state rep, a gentleman from the John Birch Society, Publius Holda from Tennessee, that we've collected some exclusive video interviews with several constitutional scholars and attorneys that we work with at Patriot Coalition that we're hoping to have put together and available before before Christmas, hopefully. But we've got a lot of the debates and other videos already available in the Article 5 playlist. One of the websites that I'd like to spend about two minutes on, and this is another one we haven't done the updating on, but the Intolerable Acts Action Center. If you're familiar with tomorrow's Constitution Day, we're all about both educating about the Constitution and addressing attacks on it. The 2012 National Defense Authorization Act violated no fewer than 14 provisions of the Constitution, including over half the Bill of Rights. We have model legislation. If you go to the intolerableacts.org, that's one of the ones in the website here at patriotcoalition.org. So click on that. That'll take you here. You go to NDAA Resolutions and Legislation in the left sidebar. We have model legislation or resolutions and ordinances for your sheriff, for your city and county government. And we've dubbed this the RCG Act or RCG Resolution. It just stands for Restoring Constitutional Governance. We have them for all 50 state legislatures. And the nice lady from Colorado, if I was to click on the Colorado, it would take you to the Colorado page where she could download, click on the link to the RCG Act of Colorado. It's in PDF format. It's custom tailored, and this isn't long, complicated legislation. It's one page. And this model legislation was put together by myself, our General Counsel, and Stuart Rhodes, the founder of Oath Keepers, who's also a constitutional attorney who specialized in, when he was at Yale, with the application of military law on civilian population. And this chops at the very root of all the abuses of the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act the authorization for use of military force, any claimed authorities or powers by the executive branch. And it's not just President Obama or President Bush. Each one of them builds on the abuses of the former. And then it includes a penalty clause. And it's a one-page bill. We worked with a lot of states across the country over the past couple of years getting this introduced or helping to modify or improve legislation that's been introduced in state legislatures across the country on this issue. This one here is specifically tailored to Colorado. So on page 2, page 1 is the actual model legislation. The second page shows all the violations of both the U.S. Constitution followed by the violations of the Colorado State Constitution. And then a reference to the oath of office from the Colorado Constitution. So when these state legislators say, it's not my job, it's a federal issue, you can refer them to the oath they took to your state constitution. And that's on page 2, and this is unique for all 50 states. We went through painstakingly the Constitution of all 50 states to find the relevant violations of your state constitution. That's on page 2 of that bill. And then page 3 are a whole bunch of references and sources to the information. That's at the Intolerable Acts. Yeah, I see it's a lot for one setting. It is. Now, that's why I'm not going into a lot of details, but this is our inaugural Nation on Fire show, and we wanted to give you a feel for what Patriot Coalition brings to the table. We're not just keyboard warriors. We get out there, and we've been out there. We're not media whores. But we're engaged. We have active legislation in Congress, in state legislatures, in county commissions, city councils, literally across the country that are in various stages of introduction and or passage. Our partners at PANDA, People Against NDA, which you see them on the sidebar here at the homepage for the Intolerable Acts, have been very active and successful in getting our resolutions and ordinances introduced from Oregon to Massachusetts and even the city of Albany, capital of New York, adopted our RCG resolution or ordinance. So we've got a ton of information available. We've got more model legislation. One last piece of model legislation that's not on there. I mentioned that we have active legislation in Congress. H.R. 1888, the Jamil Shaw Jr. Memorial Act of 2013. This is the third Congress we've had this introduced in. It used to be called the Illegal Alien Crime Reporting Act. We need hearings. It is currently sitting. If you go to blog.firecoalition.com, that was also over here in the sidebar at the PatriotCoalition.org site. It's the last one in the list of project sites. That'll take you here. Ton of information here. That bill is only 3 pages. So check that out. It's a military family. The mother was serving in Iraq when her son was executed. I don't mean just murder or kill, executed by a illegal alien gangbanger in Los Angeles. And this family has made it their mission to try and get the laws changed and the laws enforced since 2008. And if you go here, you can. There's just more information than we've got time to talk about this tonight on this issue. If you go to the Blog Talk Radio archives, that's also in that sidebar. We did a special Nation on Fire Blog Talk Radio show. When was that, Dawn? about a month ago.
Yeah, I think
July.
so now. Yeah.
Time's flying. We did about an hour. This is Jamil Shaw Sr. That's little Tommy. That's Sergeant Anita Shaw in the Army. And this is Jamil Jr. that the bill's named after now. You look about what's going on with ISIS, and they're talking about potential radical Islamic terrorists coming across our border and entering our country. We need our borders and ports of entry secured, not just throw money at it or lip service. They need to secure our borders and ports of entry. They need to enforce our immigration laws, and they don't need to collect illegal alien invaders as they come across the border. They need to turn them back immediately. Do not pass go. Do not wait 2 years for a hearing and disappear. Do not turn the illegal aliens coming across the border over to the illegal aliens that are here. It's just sheer insanity what we're setting our country up for. Check out all this information on blog.firecoalition.com about H.R. 1888. If you download this information packet, we've put it in the hands of members of Congress. Last November, our General Counsel and I went to every single Republican office on Capitol Hill and both the House and the Senate and hand-delivered this information packet to their, either directly to the staff or earmarked for their immigration legislative assistant, and another one related to the National Defense Authorization Act and the Restoring Constitutional Governance Act for their general counsel, from our general counsel. If your ears aren't bleeding yet, I said, if you look at our homepage here at the new Patriot Coalition homepage site, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot here on the surface. But our goal was to keep it simple, but provide you a gateway to a ton of information. Again, we're all volunteers, self-funded, survive and thrive, and are able to travel and do what we do because people make donations. So if you can, there's a donate button here on the left-hand side. We appreciate and we'll put to good use. We're extremely frugal with the hard-earned money that people do donate to our efforts. And, yeah, like Dawn said, give us money. I'm reading from the chat.
Well, these guys get it, though. These guys get it. I mean, as conservatives, we are all really horrible about asking for help of any kind.
Right.
And, you know, the fact that we don't have any federal funding or any big organization that backs us or anything else, I mean, we're about as grassroots as you. I think we're just below whatever grassroots is. We're the roots of the grassroots.
Well, I tell you what, we accomplish more on a fraction of pennies on the dollar than some of our national organizational constituents do with millions of dollars a year. We've got more to show for, I would say, over the past 10 years. Maybe 20 or 30, maybe $20,000 to $30,000 of formal donation made to Fire Coalition or Patriot Coalition over a 10-year period. We get emails. I get emails from some other national groups wanting to raise $500,000 to $800,000 by next Friday. Send us, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars today so we can solve this problem tomorrow, so we can show somebody that we're serious. Well, I can tell you we're serious, and it ain't about the money. and we've got evidence to prove that what little bit of money we do have, we put it to good use. So if you can't afford it, help us out. If you can't, pray for us. If you can do both, God bless you. And with that, let's see if I can get this code right. We're going to remember Constitution Day while we still have it, while there's still something to celebrate. The government that we have is not doing a good job, but that ain't the Constitution's fault. That's our fault. The Constitution ain't the problem. Amending it's not the solution. And if somebody's got some questions for me or for Dawn, I'll answer for Richard by proxy. Don't think he made it. Take this off of, figure out how to get back there. So if you've got questions, everybody's phones are muted still, but if you've got a question or a comment, if you'd just put something in the chat there real quick.
Or *6 will unmute you.
Yeah, *6 will unmute you. We don't have that many folks in here. I don't expect to be fighting over it. But feel free to unmute yourself, *6. If you would, identify, give me a first name or something, or you got a question or a comment, or something that you'd like us to see. How do you unmute online? That's a good question.
Did you mute online? Can you mute online?
She would ask a tough question.
Yeah, I'm just curious how Writer Dust actually muted online, because I don't think I even know how to do that.
All right, let me see.
I guess if you called via the internet. *6 will unmute you.
So I unmuted. I just put it in that conversation mode, so should be able to just unmute yourself or speak up.
I can hear you on the phone.
We can hear you too.
Yeah, there.
Ta-da!
But that didn't sound like Cindy. That was that possibly Grace?
Yeah, but
You sound graceful. I'm a good guesser too.
I really don't know what I'm doing.
That's okay. Neither do we.
Yeah, I can hear you on the phone.
The folks that are on the computer, in order to hear me over the computer, you would have had to call in via the computer, and then that would have activated the audio portion to come through your computer speakers. Otherwise, you're only going to hear me on the phone. I'm on the phone and not the computer a lot. Otherwise, we'd be getting a lot of feedback because my computer speakers would be repeating what you're hearing on the phone.
Wow. Did you make that sound any more difficult then?
Well, we don't know what we're doing either, Grace, but we've been working on this new format for a month or so to try and cover all the bases so we could get it right. So we could at least maybe look like we knew what we were doing. Did you have a question, Grace?
Say that again.
Do you have a question or a comment?
No, I'm just sitting here really in awe of what you're doing. And so I'm just listening. And Cindy's on my phone.
So Cindy's nearby?
She's on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Can you type your question to us? Cindy, he wants
Well,
you to type.
Or just have her tell
Cindy?
you, Grace.
She says she doesn't have a question. Then why do you want to talk?
I get that. I totally get that, Cindy. That's a just in case.
She's the one who
I've stepped away from my computer because I've been sitting there for, longer than y'all have. And I'm on blood thinners, and I'm supposed to get up and walk around for 5 minutes every hour.
I was going to say, is your butt numb?
And Dawn wouldn't talk, so I could sneak away. Yeah.
Well, you were in the middle of stuff. What do you want me to do? I'm not going to interrupt you. Well,
somebody's got to. You get me to shut
yeah.
up. But if somebody has put a question in the chat window, I'm not going to see it right now because I stepped outside.
No, we're all good. This was your grand debut, so I cut you some slack tonight.
You can make up for it next week.
I'm sure I will. And Cindy, you are right.
Well, I know some of y'all have been listening to our Blog Talk radio shows. We did a lot of back and forth on whether to keep doing that format or to move over to this format. And it seemed to us that this format was better, that you could actually see what you're being talked to about, and that even going back to, Grace said she was speechless or in awe because of all the information that we went over tonight. Well, you don't have to remember it all. You don't have to write it down because by tomorrow there'll be a YouTube video of this.
Oh,
of this
okay.
webinar. So you can watch it again. You can take your notes. You can pause the video and go look at the site to find what and where, how to access the different information points. We're hoping that this will be a more
interactive.
Yeah, more interactive and more informative, so you can actually see where and what we're talking about.
Well, I don't
know about you can just find it yourself.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely seem to do better, especially remembering stuff if I can see it and put my eyes on it.
Yes, I agree.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm in Colorado, and my main emphasis is on Article 5, and you're giving a lot of information. I'm finding out that if I can give the information to people before they've heard about Article 5, I kind of have a head start because they haven't learned what the other people want to talk about. And
this is true.
Pardon?
This is true. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
We have a clinical behavioral psychologist on staff, and the way she explained what you just said was she refers to as the bias, and that whatever people hear first establishes a bias one way or another.
Okay.
And if what they hear first sounds appealing, whether it's correct or not, when they hear the next thing that kind of licks the red off their lollipop or steals their ice cream cone, they've already started establishing a bias toward what they heard first. And if what they learned first was wrong, they have to unlearn what was wrong and let go of that before they can accept the truth.
Right.
So you're right. It's been our experience as well that if we can get the truth and the facts in front of people before the snake oil salesmen come by, and that's what I consider not the grassroots folks, the state and local folks, but these snake oil salesmen that are funded by the billionaire boys clubs. We could go into great detail about them, that are constitutional scholars and constitutional attorneys, at least they claim to be. They've got the credentials that say they know better. I find them to be contemptible because they're lying to good, decent people that are concerned about their country.
Yeah.
And they're preying on the fears and concerns of the people, and they're calling us fear-mongers. We went to a presentation they did in Virginia, north of Richmond, beginning of July, and they would not allow us to record the presentation.
Here in Colorado, Mr. Fry.
No, I'm in North Carolina.
Okay, but here in Colorado, Mr. Fry agreed to speak on a radio station that's very popular, and they ignored him. But I have plans because Article 5 is coming up again. And I'm going to try to hoodwink them into listening to our side. The conservatives here in Colorado don't want to hear about it. They're all for Article 5.
Well, it's a cop-out. The way it's being sold, they roll in, they say, you didn't cause this problem, talking to the masses. This is not your fault. You tried to elect good people, and then when they went to Washington, they changed. So don't wait. It's a waste of time to try and elect good, honest people because they're going to get sucked into the system and corrupted. Well, if you elect good people that had integrity and character in the first place, it wouldn't matter what the devil offered them.
Well, the worst part is that those same people are that you already suppose that you don't trust are the people that will be making the decisions. So,
right.
And
that's the rub.
It looks like, Nadelson, he's a god here. Yeah. It looks like we might become a majority in the legislation. And I like that idea, but that means Article 5 may pass.
Well, Professor Nadelson has told the public one thing and told the state legislators something different.
And we need, what I find helpful is to find, and I think this site is going to help, is to show them in writing. Don't listen to my words. Look at what's in writing, what Nadelson did. And they start to think about it. And I love Ferris because he's so awful. I quote him all the time. And
well, our Article 5 source page, and I didn't pull this up earlier, I've skimmed through it, is Rejoin or Die. And we also have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, including the preamble, on that site for now. But we have the very same Article 5 playlist I was showing you on YouTube is embedded in the Rejoinder Die site. If you're still looking at the screen, you can see where it's at.
Yeah.
Up here in the top left-hand corner is the playlist, and you hit the pull-down arrow. It has all the videos embedded there.
Yeah,
So you could start from the beginning, or you could select any one of them and watch them. And just like watching one on YouTube,
and I have
you
quite
can expand it so you could watch it full screen. Same way you would on YouTube.
What I like about it is they can't deny they've said it because it's on YouTube. They've said it. And
well, we don't have, this is something new that we did just for earlier this month, because in fact the very first video in this playlist, is it the first? No, it's the second one. The Manassas Article 5 debate was between Virginia state representative, they call them delegates in Virginia, Bob Marshall and Michael Ferris. That was done in Manassas on August 28th. And I went to that and recorded that debate. And Ferris was off. One of the documents that we handed out that night, and also at this presentation in Henrico County on September 2nd, went to that as well, recorded that. One of the documents that we shared, that we had handouts for and the big posters of, and you talk about quotes, is this PDF. This PDF here, and I can't. It's 8.5 by 14, so you can't see the whole thing at once. But if you see this, the link here at the bottom,
yeah,
this is where you can. We've not published this on the websites yet. In fact, we've not shared this one on the web at all. The one that we shared didn't have all the source links for all of these quotes. But this poster includes what Ferris and Meckler and their attorneys have said, what their communications director has said, their former executive director, some of their state directors, what Mr. Nadelson said. And this particular PDF, everywhere you see the blue. Now, some of this, you could just do a search for the words on Google and you would find it. But some of this is from videos, from their presentations and debates. So word search isn't going to find it. But these are clickable links on this PDF where you can go get the actual article that this came from, or the video, like this one from, I debated their staff counsel, Robert Kelly, in Yorktown back on March 15th,
that's one of my
where he agreed that their application opens up the whole thing. This is a poster that's nothing but what the right and the left have been saying, with the links to verify that we're not making none of this up. We're not putting words in their mouth. And this is the link down here at the bottom to this PDF.
This is going to be one of my favorites because I love showing them in action. This is what they've said. And I also think it gives I find Ferris arrogant, and it comes across.
That's being kind.
But I love this a lot. And here in Colorado, they'll let Nadelson talk anytime he wants to. But I have some thoughts up my sleeve.
Well, if you look on the screen right now,
I am.
And I've got a better version of this, but these are all quotes from Professor Nadelson. I call him Bait and Switch Rob.
I used to love him.
Well, you'll hear them refer to him as Ferris will refer to him as the Article 5 guru, the bar none expert on Article 5.
Right.
And he wrote the ALEC Article 5 handbook for state legislators on an Article 5 convention. Now this is a photocopy, a screen capture of one of the articles that we've not published. But these are all clickable links. But I put the actual page numbers. This amending the Constitution, and you'll hear them refer to not Nadelson, but a Tennessee Law Review article as one of their validations for some of their crazy positions. But they won't tell you, and Nadelson himself will refer to in the footnote the sourcing of this position, like to validate it, that it's from the Tennessee Law Review, but he doesn't tell you that he wrote it. So he's citing himself to validate the position that he's taking. He's not citing the founders, not citing the Constitution. He's citing himself as a source.
Didn't know
that. We've got lots of their stuff that we've not published yet, not gone public with, where they're either directly lying or talking out of both sides of their mouth. And it's not our intention to get into a mudslinging battle with them, but they put themselves on such pedestals as experts on those issues because they're constitutional attorneys and scholars that we should trust them, that they know. They've got the education and the training and experience, and that they know what they're talking about. The Constitution was not written for constitutional scholars and attorneys. It was written for farmers and shopkeepers, for the average citizen, the average voter. I tell people at presentations that I made some school teachers mad. If you need a constitutional attorney or scholar to interpret the Constitution for you, you probably had a public education, because they don't teach the Constitution, and they don't teach it in law school.
Right.
So these people like Nadelson,
Yeah, excuse me. Cindy had a question here. She said, is there any information that's on paper where Nadelson and Ferris are shown to have said one thing and then another? And you were showing that document, but do we have that stored somewhere that's accessible to her, that she would have access to?
Well, this here, these parts here, like I said, this is a photocopy or a screenshot of an article I was putting together. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I've got it.
Okay.
But I'll leave this on the screen. You can do a search, because these are direct quotes. If you type this phrase in from Nadelson into Google, you'll find this article where he said this. And that's why I said he's telling the legislators one thing and telling the public something else. And the one state, one vote thing, when he's talking to the public, he's trying to allay their concerns. But he was honest with the legislators in the actual handbook, and there's the page numbers. And the link to the ALEC handbook, because I've got 3 quotes here from that on page 11, 15, and 16. On the Rejoiner.die site. Did I put the ALEC Article 5 handbook in there? Give me a second. I'll find the link, and I'll put the link on the screen. directly to where that article is. Let's see.
And one of the things I enjoy bringing up is that Soros is for this, and it makes them think.
Yes, it does.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
This is the link to the ALEC Article 5 handbook where you can get the PDF. And if you just back the video up a few, wait a minute. Another tool I didn't use tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've got it. We've got a laser pointer we didn't use, a highlighter, and a pen so we could write. But that's the direct link. Yeah, I got new toys. That's the direct link to the ALEC Article 5 handbook that I was, I'll get that pointer back, that I was showing you in this image from page 11, page 15, and page 16, and then the myth of the runaway convention. Now, on that poster, which I think was the other one, I was showing you the PDF. Something I found really interesting, and this was from Rita Dunaway, staff counsel for the Convention of States. And I said, if you grab this link down here in the footer to download this whole PDF, it's in our documents folder. And if you want the one without the quotes, just take the dash links out. If you want it with the links, then get this one. This quote from Ms. Dunaway, and I know some of y'all are familiar with Chris Ann Hall. Back in the spring, the Congressional Research Service came out with an updated report on Article 5. And Chris Ann she was doing a daily radio show for a while there. I think she does it as she's available. But she did like a 5-part show, took 5 hours just on that CRS report. But she overlooked what I thought was the important stuff, the big picture. Well, because a lot of people were drawn, because of what Chris Ann did, it drew their attention to these Congressional Research Service reports. Convention of States decided that they needed to do some kind of public response to try and allay people's concerns based on what was in the CRS report. And one of their staff attorneys, Rita Dunaway, published an article that quote came from. And it'll take it a second to download it. But I'll just verify, if you get that PDF of that poster, click on that link and it'll open up this report that was written by Ms. Dunaway. And you scroll down to the bottom of page 2. She says that the power to adopt rules for its proceedings is vested in the convention itself, according to founding era custom and historical precedent. And then she's got this footnote 7. If you go down and read, most people don't read footnotes. We go down and read the footnote. And the footnote says, and that's where the quote that's on the poster came from, is in this footnote. And she's citing a case, Dyer v. Blair, and then she quotes from it that Article 5 identifies the body, either a legislative or a convention, which must ratify a proposed amendment. So that's talking about, the amendment ratification process, and Congress gets to decide whether it's going to be the state legislators ratifying or convention, and 3/4 of the states have to ratify. Now they continue, and this is a Supreme Court ruling, the act of ratification is an expression of consent to the amendment by that body. By what means that body shall decide to consent or not to consent is a matter for that body to determine for itself. Well, that body, and that's the end of the quote, that body is a deliberative body performing a deliberative process. And just like Congress, just like the legislature in Colorado, for example, they make up their own rules. So it doesn't matter who calls the convention, the proposing convention or the ratification convention. Once the delegates are picked, it doesn't matter who picks them, once they get there and they elect the leadership of the convention, the next thing they're going to do is adopt the rules of the convention. And they can adopt what was proposed to them by the body that called the convention. They can amend them. They can throw them out and write their own. And it's totally within their purview and their control. The states don't control how that convention operates once the gavel bangs. Congress doesn't. That body does, in the same way that Congress does, in the same way that your state legislatures do. But Rita didn't stop there. Now, what Rita was trying to paint the picture is that, because most people don't read the footnotes, she says it's not a matter over, I have to go down to the next page, over which Congress exercises discretion. The rules set by the convention include the rule of suffrage, but the initial rule is one state, one vote. So she's got 3 different footnotes there, 7, 8, and 9. But read the last sentence of footnote 7. While Dyer addresses ratifying conventions, the same rule applies to a proposing convention. So she's acknowledging the convention itself will make the rules. They will determine if and how they're going to consent to whatever it is they do. She knows this. She knows that the state legislatures aren't going to control the convention. She knows that the state legislatures, they can pass all the laws they want, state laws, trying to dictate to the delegates how they're going to conduct themselves at an Article 5 convention. But they don't have any authority at the Article 5 convention. It's a federal convention. It's a federal function. If you look at Lesser v. Garnett, the Supreme Court's already ruled. I listened to some clown just a couple of days ago talking about all the court, that if they tried to pull some shenanigans at this convention, that the lawsuits would fly. They would stop it. They'd take it to the courts. Well, what courts are they going to take it to? You can't take it to a state court. It's not a state issue. It's a federal issue, which means it would go to the federal courts. And the federal courts have already ruled. And the Supreme Court has ruled. And a whole litany of cases that these attorneys are fully aware of, such as Dyer v. Blair and Lesser v. Garnett, in which the Supreme Court, the federal courts, very corrupt courts that they say, we can't trust now, as part of the reason we need to do this convention, that they're going to be able to run to those very courts to get what they want at a specific state. Indiana has already passed legislation determining who's going to pick the delegates and who's going to control the delegates and what the delegates can talk about or make motions on. or amendment or propose amendments or what they can vote on at this federal convention, and passed a law that says it's a felony if they don't do what the state legislature tells them, and they got to give them 48 hours notice before they can vote on something. You're gonna hold that whole convention of 50 states hostage, waiting on Indiana's delegate to get permission from the governor and the leadership in the legislature to vote on a motion. You'll never have a convention. That's why the states didn't leave it in the hands of the states to control the convention or to set the rules for the convention. This isn't something that Congress or the federal government stole away from the states. This is the way the founding fathers set it up. And the states did pick the delegates to the Philadelphia Convention. Congress let them do that. If you look at Article 5, it doesn't say that the states call the convention. All the states can apply for a convention. Congress calls it. He who calls it makes those initial rules. So when they say the initial rule on suffrage will be one state, one vote, there is a lot of precedent in history to show that that's true. But if you look at what the bills that have been introduced into Congress and what the Congressional Research Service has said, and you look at what the Soros camp and the Wolfpack camp, the pure democracy camp, are leaning toward that this federal convention, this Article 5 convention, should be apportioned like the electoral college or like the House of Representatives. That it won't end up being one state, one vote, and that it wouldn't be fair if it was. That the ultimate sovereign is not the states, it's the people. So depending on which camp, the conservative or liberal camp they're talking to, or the legislators, Vice, Joe, and Jane Citizen, they're going to tell each one of those what they want to hear to help, so they either will help them trigger this convention, or at least they won't get in the way and try and stop it. That they can allay their concerns. If they can't get them to drink the Kool-Aid, at least get them to stop sounding the alarm. Get them to go sit down and do nothing. They're very crafty, slick-tongued devils and attorneys that are being paid a lot of money to go out here and sell this garbage to Joe and Jane Citizen.
May I ask you a question? Why is Mark Levin against it? I was shocked at that.
You mean why is he for it?
For it, right. I was shocked.
If you go watch this webinar, and it's up that hour and a half PowerPoint presentation, and I may can pull up that specific slide and show you. I think that would be it's in the ComCon folder, and oh no, still grab it. It's in Article 5 PowerPoint. There's 116 slides. I'm not going to suffer you through all those. I'm just going to find the one that answers your question. Oh, we'll put it over there. I want it over here. The NGOs, non-governmental organizations. I'm going to back up a couple of slides. And this is part of that PowerPoint that's in that Article 5 presentation video, what I call the Billionaire Boys Club. I've set up over the years, and now these are contemporary, these are the current promoters. But further back in this presentation, we also talk about the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. You don't hear much about them now, but they've spent between $500 million and $1.2 billion since from 1964 and 1972 to try and trigger an Article 5 convention. And a lot of those same Billionaire Boys Clubs are the ones that set up the Heritage Foundation, Cato, Americans for Prosperity, ALEC, which is the American Legislative Exchange Council, the National Council of State Legislators, Tea Party Patriots, Citizens for Self-Governance, which is the parent of the Convention of States Project, Freedom Works, your Nagelson's Independence Institute, Nick Dranius, who heads up the Goldwater Institute and is on the board of directors for the Compact for America. And you've got all these talking heads who have been receiving money from those NGOs, which are being funded or set up and funded to the tunes of millions of dollars by the Billionaire Boys Club. And you said, why is Mark Levin supporting an Article 5 convention? Because he's been getting since 2010 over $1 million a year in ad revenue for his radio show from Americans for Prosperity. Rush Limbaugh, $2 million a year on average since 2009 from Heritage Foundation. Same thing with Hannity. Glenn Beck getting his from Freedom Works. Most of these organizations are either members of or were created by either the Charles Koch Foundation, Koch brothers, or Castle Rock Foundation. And they belong to the State Policy Network. They're either connected directly or indirectly to the Koch brothers and funded. Adolf Coors is the Coors and Brewing Company, Coors Beer. There's Castle Rock. I forget exactly who the parent is behind that one. And the Charles Koch Foundation. So you ask, why are these conservative talking heads supporting an Article 5 convention for all the money?
Okay. It's shocking to me.
It is. It should be.
To see people like Limbaugh and Beck and
there's a ton of that kind of information just in this PowerPoint. That's part of the presentation. In the video of this presentation that I did in part to help prep Virginia delegate Bob Marshall for his debate that he did with Ferris. Because we couldn't play the videos in the webinar, we put the links underneath of it. If you had the actual PowerPoint, if we were there in person giving this presentation, when we got to this slide, I would just click on it and it would play the video. But if you're watching the video of the presentation, you can just type this into your browser and it'll pull up the video that would have played.
Okay.
There's your buddy Rob again.
Yeah.
This is that video. And so what was on the poster of Robert Kelly acknowledging that their application opens up the whole Constitution? That's in the presentation, and there's a direct link to that video.
I like
there's a ton of information in here in this PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint is this one right here. The second one in the Article 5 playlist on our YouTube site. Article 5 webinar, August 3rd, 2014. And so you don't have to remember, where was it at? I've opened up so many now. Close some of these. You go back to the PatriotCoalition.org site, either one of the YouTube channels link will take you directly to the playlist. Click on Article 5, and you can go to Rejoin or Die, and it's got the Article 5 playlist embedded. You just have to scroll down a little bit right there, and that PowerPoint presentation is the fourth one in the list, in the playlist.
Okay.
So what I was just showing you from the actual PowerPoint is right there.
Okay. I have that on my, actually this is going to shrink my bookmarks because I have all this on my bookmarks one at a time.
Excuse me. That's what we were hoping to do for ourselves too, because we've got so much information that we run through. We call it our research and analysis department. We call it the sausage factory, and we've got so much information that we haven't even put on the sites or published anywhere yet. But even of the stuff that we have published, we've got so much of it out there that we needed to kind of organize it. And that's why we're excited about the new project site, new parent site, to make it all. You just need one link, this one, PatriotCoalition.org.
Okay.
Eventually, PatriotCoalition.com will take the same place once we redirect it.
Cindy showed me how to put it on my favorite under bookmarks, and so that's great.
So we'll be here. It's coming up on 3 hours. We weren't planning on doing a 3-hour show tonight, but this is our first Nation on Fire show webinar. I hope it was informative. I was supposed to be able to tell you, and it's going to take us a few weeks to get into a routine to where this won't take 3 hours. But as we're available, we'll stick around longer, like we have tonight, to answer questions and discuss stuff in more detail. Our goal is to do these every Tuesday night for an hour. And then if there's interest and we're also available to stick around for another half hour, hour, or 2 hours to discuss something or look into things in more detail like we did tonight, we'll do it. But we'll be here every week for at least an hour as we're available. Some weeks it'll be me and Dawn. Some weeks it'll be Richard will be here as well. Some weeks they'll be here and I won't. If you listen to our last America's 11th Hour show, we touched on several issues there that we're going to be talking about in more detail over the next couple of months. We never get beat with the facts because we do our research. Where we're all getting beat is in the propaganda war. And if you haven't been to America's 11th Hour project or website, I highly recommend you go there. Again, this was the first one we set up with this new format. I've got to go in and add all those buttons, links to all the sites on the left-hand side to change that. But we're going to standardize all the project sites. So if you get familiar with where and how to find something on one of our sites, and then you want to learn about another one of the issues that we address, and you go to that project site, it'll have the same basic look and format and you'll know where to go to find stuff on that site because it'll be set up the same way the other ones are. This one hasn't quite been modified yet, but you go to the basics on America's 11th Hour. We'll introduce you to Walensky's rules for radicals, the Delphi technique, decision-relevant science, consensus building, change agents, facilitators, agent provocateurs, and we walk through them and just in the basics. And we'll give you a link to where you can download the whole rule book so you know how you're being manipulated. Give you a little basic information about the Delphi technique, where it came from. Most people haven't heard of decision-relevant science, but it's been used on you, and it's being used on you now in this Article 5 battle. And you probably first were exposed to it when Al Gore was talking about climate change, global warming, that the debate was over. The consensus is in. The experts have spoken. We need to move on to the solutions. They're applying the manipulative tactic of decision-relevant science. There's a link here to a video of the Yale law professor who came up with this presentation, giving his presentation on it. There's also a PowerPoint, or I've got a PDF of the PowerPoint that this professor gave. If you don't know how they're manipulating, you're not going to recognize it, and you're not going to know how to defeat it. But just this basics page link, there's a ton of information on it. Over in the resources, the videos tab, highly recommend you look at the videos by Beverly Eekman. She literally wrote the book on how to defeat consensus. I think we've embedded, we've got links to her website, to some of her books, a 6-part series of videos. I didn't even do them as a playlist. I got all 6 parts embedded. We're still putting this site together as well. We've got more webmastering work and consolidating information. We got a lot of work to do. We're hoping to have it all complete in about another year. This isn't just a month or two process, because we just barely scratched the surface on the information that we have at Patriot Coalition and Power Coalition on a wide range of issues that every good citizen needs to be aware of.
I really appreciate everything you've done.
We've had a lot of good help, and we have a lot of good help, and we don't have a lot of egos and attitudes to deal with. I've been blessed with the good Lord put some good people on our staff, and the stuff we're dealing with sucks, but the people that we're trying to address it with are a blessing and make it worth the trouble. We're just trying to do our part.
It's amazing.
Let me see if I still have that image up, because I'm going to stop the recording. But for those who are on the tail end of this, of watching the video, because we're going to archive this, and for everybody that's still here with us, join us next Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 Pacific. Join.me/Patriot Coalition. You've got to click the icon on the phone to get to hear the audio, or you can call by computer. Just click on this link, and it'll connect to your computer speakers and microphone. Or you can call the conference number, and it'll give you. You can call the phone number, and then punch in the conference ID number, and then you can hear the audio if you want to listen to or participate in or engage us on the live show. Or you can go to YouTube. YouTube.com/Patriot Coalition or Patriot Watchdog, either one. I think I still have that one up. Yeah. Patriot Coalition playlist, and look for Nation on Fire, and that's where the archive of our shows will be with the name, the date at the end of the name. We may end up putting the subject matter, but just in the interest of trying to keep it simple.
I can't believe it's been 3 hours. It went so fast.
Well, hopefully we didn't bore you then. Stuck around.
I gave up Mitch.